Sometime to meet you, but this is
And we'll hear from the experts about their insights, and ultimately this will lead to a policy brief, and this will enable us to fine-tune and tweak the policy measures. Anyway, I would like to call upon the first speaker of the session will be Dr. Magesh Nandagopal.
Happy to be here, and thanks for the opportunity to be and present some of the thoughts that we have on this issue. I have a bad throat, so I don't want to scream, so I'm just trying to optimize it. Okay. So I've set an alarm for myself for 20 minutes. So at the end of 20 minutes, hopefully it will go off, and I'll also stop. So don't worry about me overstaying here. All right, it's on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the title. Let me just go into the talk and one more. So this is the reason why this title is even given, why we are even assembled here. Majority of the R&D expenses are done by the government through government organizations like CSIR and IITs and ICAR and BARC and so on. A bulk of it through ISRO and the Department of Atomic Energy. But still, and the figure doesn't even include the public enterprises which spend on R&D. For example, ONGC and GAIL and all these companies which spend on R&D, that figure is not included here. I'm not very sure, but since you are the DST expert, I'll concede that point. So the fact being that there is enormous amount of science being developed in between the four walls of a lab, in one way or the other, for an R&D institution or a research laboratory or a university, whatever it is. And some of that science has value in it, and we need to unlock that value. How much value? Let's take an example of the US and see how much value can possibly be created by that. Next slide, please. So this is for 1 decade. Between 2000 and 2009, the US universities, about 160 of them participated in that survey. They generated about $19 billion in licensing income alone in that decade. And next slide. And that is the number of startups in the same period that were created by the US university. So each of these startups had participation by the scientists, some of the students, postdocs, and entrepreneurs in the ecosystem. And just imagine the ripple effect it has on the economy. That 19 billion is only a small portion it captures only a small portion of the value created. Let's say that typically you get about 5% royalty, as licensing income. So you multiply that figure by 20. And then there is something called as a multiplier effect in economics, right? So you put 1 rupee in the economy and it multiplies because it pays your salary and you pay somebody else's salary and it multiplies. So if you multiply all these things, the amount of value that is created, sheer value, by science that resides in the four walls of a lab is quite enormous. And this is just to illustrate that point. Next slide. So this is what we do. I'm going to talk from a practitioner's point of view because we at NCL, I belong to CSIR NCL. We are in a division called NCL Innovations, which takes care of technology-related issues, tech transfer, commercialization, startup creation, ecosystem creation, and all that. So this is what we want to do. We want to take the lab in NCL, the science done at NCL, and create products and services in the market. It could be high-value products, it could be low-value products. It doesn't matter. For us, we want to see the science being used by people. The high-paying customers, low-paying customers, we don't make a distinction. We just want to make it happen. And one more slide. So this is 12%. This is also a survey done by the US universities. You see the reference there. Of all the technologies that are created in universities, which percentage of them are ready to hit the market the day after? That is the number, 12% or so. So which means that you are looking at a reality of 88% of the technology needing some kind of work, some kind of investment, some kind of commitment from people, of resources that need to be taken so that it can be translated to the market. Next slide. One more. So this is all you need to make this jump, right? You need a lot of money, you need a lot of people, and you need a lot of time. By a lot of money, I mean you need soft money. You need money in small chunks, in 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 50 lakhs, to do these kinds of milestone jumps. So we have a technology, we want to do proof of concept, we need 8 lakhs for that. So this is not for creating, no paper is going to come out of it. But we are going to prove that the concept works. We are going to make a few prototypes of what we have in mind. And we are going to make hundreds of these prototypes. We are going to scale it up. So this needs to be soft money that can be deployed quickly and without constraints. And the kind of people, one more. So the kind of people I'm talking about, we already have scientists in our lab. And they are extremely talented and qualified, and like they sit on a large deal of capabilities that is unmatched if you look at the R&D situation in India. So we already have that kind of people. But what we need is to do this jump, people who have this cross expertise in science and technology, business and law. So you need some kind of an overlap, possibly all three, but that is difficult to get. Some kind of an overlap you need. So people who understand the technology but also turn and talk the language of the industry or the entrepreneurs, who can raise funds, who can build business plans, who can get into the market and do primary market research and talk to the customers and understand what's possible, come back to the scientists, run these projects. People who can understand all these things, accountants, service providers. So we need all kinds of people in that to do this jump. So when we started doing this activity of, when NCL started looking seriously at building new models of technology transfer about 7-8 years ago, we quickly realized that to do this jump, we alone can't do it. We can't hire all these people into NCL, we can't raise all this money within NCL, and we can't do all these activities within NCL. We simply can't do it. It's impossible to, accomplish all that. So we need partners, we need help, we need people to work with. We need, in other words, what is called as an ecosystem. An ecosystem which provides for all these things. And that's what we went about creating in the last 7 years. So what are you going to see now? So, one more hit. Yeah. Stop here. So we want to create multiple routes for this to happen. Because each technology need is different and unique. And we can't say like all of it will be picked up by industry as long as we portray it to industry. That's not going to happen. Industry is only interested in a few technologies of a certain risk profile. If you tell industry people that you're going to have like 3 to 4 year development time before it hits the market, there are not going to be many buyers for that. Does it mean the technology doesn't need to be looked at? Does it mean that it can be shelved and not even bothered to be developed further? No. There is promise, and the technology developers and the managers see the promise. How do you actualize it? By putting some work, by putting money and doing proof of concept and prototyping and so on and so forth. So you need multiple routes. And when we looked at it, there are some of the routes that were already existing, like NRDC, which we were trying to, so we were trying to partner with them to take some of our technology forward. But some of the routes did not exist then, like Venture Center, like CSAI Tech. These Venture Center, by the way, is a technology business incubator started by NCL. And CSAI Tech is also an organization that was created by Venture Center and NCL Innovations. So these partners were not there when we started. And we created those partners. And we want to create more of these. We don't want to be, So the moral of the story is that we want many, many such colored arrows connecting these two blocks. Some of them we could do it. Some of them are already existing. We leverage all of it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that we only will work with our people. No, it doesn't matter. We just want to see our science taken to the lab, to the market. And we'll do anything that's possible to do it. And all these arrows that you see, all the boxes, the seed funds that you see, all that has been created around NCL now. And so our technology, it is not just for NCL's technology, it is open for anybody who wants to use from across India. And all these pockets of funds that I have been talking about, all these people, service providers, you see all these logos, none of this existed 5 years ago. And all of this has been put into use so that technology can hit the market, or science can become products and services. And that's what we mean by ecosystem building. And one more. Alright, so I shouldn't make sudden movements. So when we look at the role of TTOs, technology transfer offices, what are the traditional roles of TTOs? Let's say in a mature economy like the US. US universities have been running, Bayh-Dole Act was passed in early 80s. They've been doing it for 30, 35 years now. They're masters of what they do. Let's look at what they do. In a TTO in a US office, what they do, traditional roles. All of this. Awareness, sensitization. They go and talk to scientists, students, ask them to file patents, and then take invention disclosures, decide on which patents to file, and then file it, and then patent strategy, and then portfolio management. And then, when technology marketing, seeking out partners, raising funds, bringing in those partners and negotiating a license, valuing technology, and managing conflict of interest related issues. What can a scientist can and cannot do while you are in employment at the university or the organization. All of these are traditional roles of TTOs, which we have to do. Anybody who is wanting to do a TTO in India, we have to do all of this. But is this enough? Nope, not enough. One more time. We need to go beyond that. Why? Because the people in the US, if you are MIT sitting in the area of Cambridge and Boston, you have a ready ecosystem for you to tap into. You already have a bunch of VCs who are willing to fund early stage startups. You already have technology entrepreneurs who have created 10, 20 companies, and then they want to serial entrepreneurs who want to come and lead those companies. You have service providers. You have all of that existing in the area, in the San Francisco area, or Boston area, and in the Austin area, wherever, these kinds of technology intensive, the North Carolina Triangle Belt. You have all of this. You don't need to, if you are a TTO, you don't need to worry about all of this. You just leverage those things and create, concentrate on your job. But we in India don't have that luxury. None of this exists in any of the places that when we started, none of this existed in Pune. We had to create all of that. And so we just can't say we'll just do what TTOs need to do. We need to build an ecosystem around us so that it's possible to do it. So first of all, within the organization, you have to champion the cause of technology. So all of us work in organizations where some of it is academic research and some of it is technology-driven research. There's always nobody understands technology. Patents don't go into your. They do go into your assessment and all that, but nobody cares about how many patents, how many technologies you have translated. The leadership doesn't care. So it's a lonely job to highlight this constantly and bring it up to the top. That is what we mean by championing the cause of technology. And you have to be vocal, not just so that people know that you are there, and so that leadership understands what you are trying to do and support it. And frame transparent policies and follow it. Just because you want to make an exception, don't make an exception. Always follow a policy and make it very transparent. All our services, policies, everything, we put it up on our intranet and say this is it. This is what we are going to do, and this is how it will happen. We don't deviate from it, for any reason. And create the ecosystem. So all that I was talking about in the last slide. So we have to go beyond that and beyond our roles and do that. And work with partners. They don't exist, create them. And create new models. Startups, NCL, we didn't know how to create startups 6 years ago. So we started doing a bunch of activities, and we started running what is called as a lab to market program, and started doing these proof of concept projects. And after 48 or such projects, finally we got one startup. And then quickly we got another 5. And then we got another 3. So but there was about a 4-year window in which we were running 3-4 dozen projects, none of which were translating into anything. But we had to do it, So finally, some of it translated. But so you need to try out a few more things for a few to stick. And intervene early. That's the question that you had about can you go early and develop technology, frame technology projects. We have done that also. So we have created a program for developing security features for the Indian rupee note, and the RBI and the Bank of and their press has actually signed an MOU with us where we are there is a joint proposal which is operational now, where we are developing security features. But this was developed with the end in mind, in the sense it was not something that we already had. We packaged it. We first looked at the need, and then assembled people around it to solve it, and now it's a project. So early technology intervention, and the people to man these organizations, people who have the cross expertise of science and technology, business and law. We need to train them, and TTOs have to do it. Whoever it is, incubators, TTOs, whoever it is, we have to do it. We have to train those kinds of people to man these kinds of roles. One more. And now, I have another 5 minutes left, so I'll talk about this slide. We always get questions. If you're running a TTO in Indian organizations, you always get questions. RTI, somebody raises a question in Parliament. somebody asks, we are spending so much money on you, you guys are filing so many patents, what are you doing sitting on those patents? Why are you filing patents if you're not going to realize anything? So we have to take a hard look at why are we here for? Is it to file patents and commercialize it, or is it to create an impact? The way we look at it, we want to create an impact. By impact we mean economic and non-economic, if it is a strategic impact, that also we need to take into consideration. We want to create impact in the lives of people with leveraging science. That's our role. And returns is a very dicey business to talk. So in the US, about 160 universities were surveyed. You know how many technology transfer offices were profitable? By profitable means the amount of money they earn is more than the amount of money they spend for filing patents. 16% of the technology transfer offices. So this includes like the top 100 universities, 160 universities, in most rankings in the world. So the job of a technology transfer office is not to just be profitable. That's a very important quotient there. But it has to create impact. It is not a cop-out answer, but this is the forum to discuss it, right? So let's discuss it. So it is a very important question. So I have 2 points to make here. One is about over-reliance on industry. There's always one misconception that somehow industry is a knight, in shining armor. As the moment we show, most industries don't see that kind of problem. Why would they see it if they can make money by creating, selling tur dal and in India we can make quite a bit of money. Look at the stock exchange for the last 15 years. Analyze which companies have done well. You can make quite a bit of money, percentage returns, excellent returns in doing, consumer goods and so on and so forth. So why would they want to take technology risk? And there are only certain amount of percentage of technologies that are suited for directly industry adoption. That doesn't mean that the rest of the 88% of technologies which are not ready, doesn't mean that it is useless. It just needs some work, some more time before its impact and its attractiveness becomes clear to the people around us. And industries will come and buy out these startups. It could be startups, PPPs, whatever it is, they'll come and do that. So that is one point about the industry. Second, this question of patents. Why do we have to patent at all? So first of all, we patent for multiple reasons. One, we want to keep the research window open. We don't want somebody to patent and ask our researchers to close down the cutting-edge research that they are doing in our labs today. That is point number one. We want to keep our research open. Second, it is easier to raise resources against a patented technology than against a non-patented technology. When I am going to start a company, it's easier to hire people, raise the VC funding, and all that if it is a patented technology, because the edge is there. You can prevent others from doing it. So that is one more reason. Third reason is strategic, technology foresight. As research organizations, as NCL, as CSIR, we have a certain amount of technology foresight. We have professional scientists, professional technology managers, we are managing this. Not all industries are interested in all these things. I'll give you a concrete example. So we have a very large program on fuel cells. Fuel cells are not profitable at the moment. And there are only 3-4 groups in the world who can make a fuel cell from scratch, beginning to end, all the components and systems. We are one of them. So are we supposed to shut down our fuel cell programs or not support on patenting? When we patent, we have to patent in a wide range of countries and so on and so forth. No. This is exactly why we are here for. We are here to think ahead for the country. We are here to think ahead and protect 10 years down the line when the fuel cell program hits the market and becomes profitable. We will be there to make sure that we have a technology pool and the resources that we have to build and protect that. And we see that as our role. Who is going to do this? No industry is interested in spending crores of rupees in building this program. That doesn't mean that we should indiscriminately spend on all the programs that we think is important. But I'm saying there are strategic long-term programs that we need to build and nurture. And that is the role of organizations like us, where we need, and patenting is an important tool there, and it is not going to yield dividends for the next 5 years, sure. But that is the way to do it, and the program will survive only if it is backed up by patents and only in the long-term duration. And anyway, technology development takes a long time. No, it takes time to bring in the people and work and even test it out to see whether it. That is my alarm going off. I'll take 1 more minute. So it's important that we do it. So and also to be profitable in terms of So when we are talking about patent costs, people conveniently forget that all right, costs for patenting you are including. How about the cost of research that goes behind the patent? What happens to the scientist's time and the overheads? when you start counting scientists' time, how long in the back you are going to go and create it? And the scientist might have had that idea 6 years ago. So you're going to start accounting for his or her time 6 years from then and put the overheads on it. It's impossible to do a costing-based analysis for technology adoption. You have to be hard-nosed about it. It's apparent that 70% of the research funding is coming from the government, but we have to be hard-nosed about which technologies we back. But we can't be asking these questions and why selectively put up, why invest so much. Then why fund R&D organizations at all? What are the dividends? Why there are a lot of money goes into blue sky research? Why are we backing that up? Anyway, so those are those thoughts, because each one of us will face these questions sooner or later. Audit will raise it, RTI will raise it, Parliament questions will raise it. So these are our thoughts on it. That's all. So we can discuss it. So, all right. So just I'll give you 2 examples of the startups we have created. One more, please. So this is a process that we follow for some of the startups that we have created at NCL, where SES stands for Scientist Entrepreneurship Scheme, where scientists can actually go and start companies. It's possible. Government has allowed. We have done it. And NCL has transferred technology to these companies. One more slide, please. I'll skip this. This is all we have done to create a startup. A little bit of bro beating, but we'll skip this. Examples.